welcome to episode 52 of the Visionary VA podcast. Yes, that's right. The podcast has now been running for a whole year. What started out as a slightly terrifying idea, sitting down with a microphone and hoping someone somewhere would actually listen, has turned into one of the most rewarding things I've done so far. When I launched the podcast last October, I had no idea what it would become. I just knew I wanted to create something real, a space for honest conversations about what it's actually like to grow a VA business and build a team. Not the polished version, but the messy, human, sometimes magical reality of running a business that's built around freedom, purpose, and possibility. So, if you've listened to even one episode, shared it, sent me a message, or joined me on this journey, thank you, truly. I couldn't have imagined how much this little idea would grow or how many brilliant conversations it would spark. When I think back to those first few episodes, I can still feel the nerves. I was so used to helping other people show up, helping clients be visible, that turning the spotlight on myself felt pretty uncomfortable. But hitting record for the first time reminded me of something I tell my mentees all the time. You don't have to feel ready to start. You just have to start. In the early days, I was overthinking every word, re-recording everything and second-guessing whether anyone would care. But the more I did it, the more it became second nature. Like most things in business, confidence comes from doing. And over time, this podcast stopped being just a marketing tool. It became a creative outlet, a place to process what I was learning as I led my team, mentored other VAs, and navigated the constant ups and downs of agency life. It has taught me so much, not just about podcasting, but about communication, connection, and consistency. Because showing up every week, recording, promoting, and juggling it all alongside running my business, mentoring, and family life, it's no small thing. But it's also one of the things of which I'm most proud. Over the past 12 months, as well as flying solo, I've spoken to so many incredible guests, VAs, agency owners, coaches, leaders, and every single one of them has shared something that's shifted my perspective in some way. So I thought today I'd revisit a few of those amazing interviews and pull out some key learnings and hopefully some advice which might be helpful to you on your own journey. So one of my favourite conversations this year was when I chatted with the fabulous Kathy Soulsby of Personally Virtual in episode 37. And I asked her what advice she'd give to someone who wants to build a bigger business. She shared some golden nuggets about taking the time to put systems in place, choosing carefully where and how you start reducing your own billable hours, and the importance of getting your rates right, charging your worth, and factoring in the increasing costs of running your business. Oh, and of course, the need for bucket loads of resilience.
I think don't feel you have to go all in. You can do it gradually and get used to it. And that will help you put in place good systems as well to manage it, which might feel mad when there's only two, but you will soon feel the pain when there are six and you haven't got things in the background kind of quite right. Yeah. And I would say there needs to be a tipping point in which your billable hours go down as theirs go up. I mean, you can't kind of down tools and go, right, I've got an associate now, so I'm not doing any client work overnight, because you'll be penniless because you're not making a massive margin on these things, right? I remember when I started, it might even be an urban myth, but back in 2015, there was somebody paying associates £25 an hour, but billing out at 50. And I mean, this is not how life works in my experience. I mean, not a concept in my world. But we are not making a huge amount of margin on those hours. So you've got to have enough of your own work and gradually move it down, I would say. And I think you've got to make sure your rates are right. I'm sure this is something you bang on about all the time. I know this is a bugbear of yours. Yeah. £50 is not an obscene rate, depending on the kind of work you're doing. Yeah. It might feel like it, but if you are paying somebody else. And plus, it's not just the paying somebody else. As your team grows, everything gets more expensive. So my last, well, one password, whatever it's got, that thing cost me flipping hundreds a month, right? Timesheet cost me 200 a month because all of it grows. And I don't even have licenses for Microsoft for my team because I don't give them all emails, largely because they probably already have however many client emails already. Why give them another one? They've got to check for one email from me a month going, can you send me your invoice? It just seems pointless. So I'm not giving them an email, but a lot of places do for tidiness so that, nobody's seeing personal emails. That's another, 12 quid a month, whatever it is for each one. It adds up. So you need to make sure you've got the margins in there to cover that. And I think you've got to be emotionally quite resilient when you're dealing with other people. Because other people are human, they have lives, they have family that get sick, they have parents that get old, there is stuff, right? As soon as you have a person, there is stuff that comes along with them. And you have to be good at managing that. I mean, you're not their therapist by any stretch, but you have to be empathetic and you have to have a plan because stuff will go wrong. It's inevitable, particularly, I think, in a sort of quite heavily female industry. I don't know what percentage of my team have kids, but more have kids than don't, I would say. So then if you've got to factor in school holidays, you've got to factor in days of sickness, stuff goes wrong, right? For everybody. People get ill. So you have to be able to bounce back from that and be a bit fluid and a bit agile, I would say.
You have to be able to take it in your stride, don't you? And just accept that stuff is going to happen. It's not, it might, it will. It absolutely will.
Yeah. It will. And I was at a conference the other week on a panel with the lovely Caroline Marshall, Gilly and Holly, different Holly. And somebody asked in the audience, they said, what happens if a client doesn't like their VA or complains about their VA? And we all just kind of went, oh yeah, it happens. And they were sort of horrified. They're like, what do you mean it happens? It's just like a Wednesday, right? It will happen because people are going to people, and that client may be a particularly tricky type. We all have had that client that doesn't quite gel with a few people, and you go, at some point I'm going to call it and say, this isn't us, this is you. But you've also got the odd VA who just has some weird way of working that doesn't quite gel with somebody, and it doesn't mean they're not amazing at their job. They just don't quite work with this particular client, and it happens. Absolutely. And the first time it happens, it's fairly horrific, but after the fourth time you go, oh, here we go, right?
Yeah,
I've got a plan. I know how this works. And all those things just make it not quite as easy as it looks on paper, I would say.
Not surprisingly, that theme of resilience is something that has come up a lot over the year. In episode 31, I had a fantastic conversation with Emma Mills of MyPA, who reflected on the importance of resilience and vision in her journey.
Character traits are absolutely tons of resilience. Like, that is probably number one, because although I can be too nice, I have got loads of resilience. I know that, otherwise I wouldn't still be here, definitely. So I think resilience, but tied in with, I think the most important thing is the vision of where you're going, because without that, it makes everything really difficult. So on a day where your clients have cancelled and a team member's not turned in, those things become really difficult if you don't see what the bigger picture is of where you really want to go, and that's not just about revenue growth, it's about, the kind of life I want or the kind of business I want to build. So I think getting hyper clear on, well, this is a bad day, but I know that this is what I want from IPA, so I just need to take the steps. I think that resilience and that kind of clear vision on it is really important. And I think just kind of echoing back to the being a nice person, I think just being like, we're very transparent with our communication at MyPA. So I think transparency as a leader, but I think also being really clear on what good looks like. So one thing I have learned is when you're both vague in your business, whether that's with team or clients, it's not good for anyone. And actually what high performers really thrive off is this is like clarity on what good looks like. So I would say resilience, clear vision of where you're actually going, because that helps on the bad days. And internally, in terms of growing a team, whether self-employed, whether employed, transparency in where you're going. So getting them on the journey, transparency of what's going on, but also just being really clear as a leader on what good looks like, because it definitely makes it a lot easier for everybody.
Another conversation I really enjoyed was with the brilliant Sarah Dodsley in episode 24, who reminded us that leadership can be lonely and that we don't have to have it all figured out, because guess what? No one does.
Having worked with people who either run their own businesses or at a senior level of leadership in other businesses, so I think there's quite a uniqueness to being at that level. And I think there's an assumption that you should know all the things and be able to do all the things and understand everything and not get advice or support. Yeah. And I think we often look up to leaders and we think, oh, they must know everything. So when we get to that level, we assume that that's how we have to be. Yeah. And it is so lonely. It is such a lonely position to be in. And I think actually people at that level need the support the most because they don't have the sounding boards around them. And if you're running your own business, if they don't do it, they don't understand what it's like. It is such a unique pressure. If you're working for yourself, it is a really unique thing. So we need that more than ever. So I think, what guidance would I give? Seek support in places where you will be heard. That's the most important thing. It's not even at times that you need advice or guidance. It's just someone listening to you. Yeah. And really give yourself permission to acknowledge the feelings that you're having. If it is that loneliness piece that's coming through, even just really acknowledging that can be quite freeing. Putting down that baggage of I have to have everything sorted and solved. Give yourself some grace to feel the struggles and the challenges, because it's normal. We have to really validate these feelings. They are really normal. And I think it's looking for support in places where I think it's being heard is really key here.
Finally, I want to revisit a fantastic conversation with Robin Waite, the Fearless Business Coach, in episode 16. In this first clip here, he highlights the importance of understanding your numbers, not just in financial terms, but across every aspect of your business.
So everything does tie back to that effective hourly rate. And so I think if anybody is kind of still a bit like unsure about how to package, one way to bridge the gap is just to understand the numbers just that little bit better.
Yeah.
So there's two ways that I normally approach this. So the first one is set yourself a goal for the next 12 months. How much would you like to earn? And I'll keep the numbers sort of roughly simple. So let's say, for example, if a VA wanted to earn, say, £60,000 over the course of the next year, well, so what's that, 5K a month, for example, and you worked out roughly with all of the, children's illnesses and school and pickups and drop-offs and everything else, actually you can only do 100 hours worth of paid work over the course of a month, excluding the extra time for all of the other life admin and business admin stuff. Well, the bar is set there. You need to be charging a minimum of £50 an hour. I think, unfortunately, a lot of VAs don't even do just this basic calculation, and they get trapped at like 2-3K, for example, and then can't elevate beyond it because in their mind, the only way to earn more money is to sell more hours. Yeah. When you then start to scale, there are other maths which you have to take into consideration as well. So you have to imagine turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. And so again, I see a lot of small business owners who are like, yeah, 6-figure entrepreneur and this, that, and the other. And then you look at their bottom line and they're like driving around in a Corsa, 20-year-old Corsa with a Nokia 3210 because they can't afford, they've got no profit in their business basically, or cash. I've nothing against like Nokia or Vauxhall, by the way, they were just two examples that came to mind. So that creating profitability is like one of the most important things, especially that there is no point scaling if you've got no profit, because all that's going to happen when you scale is you're scaling a problem, lack of profitability. So what I recommend is when you start to bring in other associate VAs, you want a minimum, absolute minimum of 50% GP on that. So if somebody's charging you £25 an hour, you need to be charging out a minimum of £50 an hour in order to create that 50% gross profit margin. Because what happens is, out of that then gross profit, there's this compounding effect as the money trickles down then through the P&L. So with consultants, it's not so, there's not so much of a draw on the overheads. It's not quite so expensive. If you bring a VA in as a salaried employee, it's actually 3 times. So if you're say paying them a salary of 24K, for example, which is roughly sort of living wage at the moment, I believe, in the UK, you probably actually want to be making sure that revenue generation wise, they're bringing in 75K. So 3 times. So it's a third for their salary, third contribution towards overheads and expenses, and then a third for tax and profit. And again, I think a lot of VAs, when they start to scale, they just haven't done these basic maths to work out economically where things sort of stack up.
Yeah.
And like ultimately you can get yourself in the right pickle if you don't just do those numbers. And just as an example of this, so I did some work with an accountant. So not necessarily in the VA space, but what she did do is she brought in bookkeepers to work alongside her practice, which makes logical sense because there's a natural upsell. And she was paying her bookkeepers about £17 an hour and then charging them out at £25 an hour. So first clue is she didn't get the margin right. The second problem was, though, she was losing money on the bookkeeping. Like every hour that she sold was costing her money. Accounting practice, though, looked really healthy. So it took a lot of unpicking to figure out where the money was getting lost. And it transpired what was happening was she would go to a client, put a proposal out for like say 10 hours a month worth of bookkeeping, but it was taking the bookkeepers who she was overpaying double the amount of time to do the book. So she was paying out like £7 an hour or something. Like and I explain it, like she was basically contributing £7 an hour towards the client's bill because of the way she'd structured it.
Yeah.
So immediately we had to make two difficult choices. One was we had to increase her hourly rates in the bookkeeping so that we created that margin in there. But also she was paying two associate bookkeepers when really they were doing enough work for one full-timer. So when we pulled somebody in full-time, again, it worked out slightly cheaper on that, effective hourly rate for the wages, again, which eked out a bit more of a margin. And then all of a sudden she had a windfall of cash because her bookkeeping literally within 30 days became profitable again. And I always say to people, especially when it comes to the numbers, you can't say you're not a numbers person. You can't make these excuses. Fair enough if you're like, I think there's a name for it, but dyslexic with numbers, you have a learning difficulty or challenge around numbers. I get it. But then your responsibility becomes, well, if I'm going to run a business, I need to take responsibility for that challenge and hire somebody who does know numbers, an accountant or CFO or somebody like that. Because everything in business is about numbers, not just the profit and loss and margins and cash flow and things like that, but also conversion rates, lead generation, website traffic. Everything in business is all about numbers.
And then I love this clip where Robin talks about mindset, steady growth, building a boring but successful business, and what it really means to be a fearless leader.
So there's this kind of thing in the coaching world where like everybody's like, it's all about hustle and grind and like, taking risks and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, actually, it doesn't have to be like that. Because like Simon Sinek put it really eloquently. He said, because in The Infinite Game, the book which he wrote, he's like, there shouldn't be short and long-term wins within a business. It should be about, the goal is the infinite game. Stay in business for as long as you possibly can do. So we don't count it, tally it up in wins and losses. And so that's my philosophy, which I run the business by. And I believe other business owners should pay more into that as well. Like build slow, steady, organic growth. Building a boring business means you will be in business in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years time, and make this a career if you love doing it. So the phrase fearless came from, I was doing a talk and somebody said, well, what makes like other entrepreneurs successful, whereas other people like seem to like explode and like disappear like really quickly. And I said, well, the business owners that are most successful, they just fear the things in business ever so slightly less that stop others from achieving their goals or dreams. And a friend of mine who was stood in the audience pointed at me and it's like, Robin Waite, the fearless business coach. So that's where the brand came from.
Love it.
But it is about the little things that we get that little knot in our stomach over that, we've got to raise our prices and have the difficult conversation with our clients about that. Or, standing up on stage and doing a 60-second pitch, or heaven forbid, a keynote talk in front of 200 people or something. Or letting that person go because you know that it's bad for business. Those are fearless business decisions that and it's not about, hopefully you've got a picture. It's not about being reckless or taking risks or anything like that.
No.
It's about taking measured small risks that are going to move your business and your life forwards. And I've always discovered that, and like, I still get fear. I still get, a bit of imposter syndrome. You see your hero in a room full of people and you've got to go up and say hello to them, like shake their hand. I get the butterflies and the jitters and things like that. It's a bit of driven a bit by fear.
But you do it anyway.
But you do it anyway. Ever slightly less. And that's enough quite often just to get started, to take that first step towards whatever it is that you want to achieve. And like, life is too short. So I know we talk about the infinite game, but my infinite game looked at, like me, running successful businesses, probably retiring about 55, having a nice life when the kids grow up, going traveling and all these sorts of things. And then I get this thing thrown at me and I'm like, may not get that opportunity. It's only a small chance, but I may not get that opportunity because it could, brain surgery and all sorts of things like that might be in my future. And so that really enhanced like now it's not just fear things ever so slightly less. Now it's just fear things less.
Yeah.
Right. Not ever so slightly, but just less. Just do the things that you want to bloody do, Robin, because life is short. So something simple, like I went to Dubai at the start of the year, which is just the most incredible trip, but it's been on my mind to do that for like 2-3+ years. And kids, it's never been the right time, or it's too expensive, or any number of different excuses that I could make. And then it got around to sort of early December. I was like, I'm going to go. Like life is too short. I've got this gift. All I kept hearing about is Dubai. So I had to go and follow my heart with it.
Yeah.
Needless to say, had an amazing time, had so many amazing business conversations, met a couple of like my superhero kind of influencers that are on my radar, because I want to build partnerships with them.
Yeah.
And I think, so this is just my way of saying to the people listening to this, and you, Holly, as well, but the people listening to this, like, if you get that little bit of anxiety in your tummy where you're just like, I should do this thing, listen to that, because you probably should be. You may miss the opportunity if you don't do it. You can make lots of excuses to, whatever, plenty of reasons to come up with why not to do it. Give yourself reasons why you should do it and lean into it. Because I just see a lot of business owners that are just massively frustrated. They're tired. They kind of get pigeonholed, like I said, into this sort of job mentality and don't feel they can escape it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it all comes down to, you asked me about mindset, the rules that we create for ourselves up here, the fence, the invisible fence that we build around ourselves, that we don't allow ourselves to step over every now and then and see what's beyond it. So I think what I'm saying is JFDI.
So I hope you've enjoyed revisiting these episodes as much as I have. And if you'd like to listen to any of the full interviews, you'll find the links in the show notes. In terms of my takeaways from this year, I would encourage you to remember that everyone's path looks different. There's no single right way to build a VA business. What matters is creating a version that fits you. Leadership starts with self-awareness. The more we understand ourselves, our triggers, strengths, energy, and boundaries, the better leaders we become. Growth takes courage, whether it's hiring a team, raising your prices, or letting go of clients who aren't aligned. Progress always comes with a bit of discomfort. And systems plus soul equals sustainability. You can't run a thriving business on hustle alone. It takes structure, yes, but also heart, purpose, and alignment. I can't wait to have more conversations about leadership, mindset, and the realities of scaling a VA business. I want to go deeper into the things that really make a difference, the systems, the people, the mindset shifts that turn a busy VA business into a calm, confident, scalable one. Whether you've listened since episode 1 or this is your very first time tuning in, your support means the absolute world. This podcast has grown because of you, because you've listened, shared, and shown up week after week. So a huge thank you from me. And if you've got a favourite episode from the past year, I'd love to know. Come and tell me in the Viva Facebook group or over on Instagram. And if you've been sitting on an idea, whether it's a podcast, a new service, or just a new direction for your business, take this as your sign to start. Don't wait until it's perfect. Start messy, start scared, but start. Here's to another year of growth, connection, and courage. Thank you for being part of this journey. I can't wait to see where year 2 takes us. See you next week. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode.